Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for another webinar on a market access and international approvals webinar. I'm Bruno, and I'm part of the testing and certifications technical staff here at Vista Compliance Laboratories. Today, I'll be presenting to you the certification and approval regulations, as well as the technical requirements for electrical equipment, electronics, and wireless product and device approval in India. The Wireless Planning and Coordination Wing, or WPC, is the wing of Department of Telecommunications under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Communications of the Government of India, and is the National Radio Regulatory Authority of India, similar to the FCC in the USA. The department is responsible for issuing amateur radio licenses, allotting the frequency spectrum, and monitoring the frequency spectrum. The WPC is headquartered in New Delhi and has regional branches in Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata, and Guwahati. In India, radio frequencies for wireless communications is defined between 3 kHz to 3000 GHz, and WPC certification is required for all wireless devices in this range. Devices operating outside of these frequencies are not regulated by WPC. Vista Laboratories is an EMC RF compliance test lab and product certification body in experts in global regulatory approvals for RF devices. So, today we'll primarily be going over the requirements of radio frequency and telecommunications approvals in India. In this webinar, we'll provide an overview of the major topics necessary to understand to get your radio devices on the right track for approval and import into India. If you have any questions on the topics presented today, or any other immediate questions regarding compliance testing and product certifications, you can reach us at info@vistacompliance.com. Without further ado, let's begin the presentation. WPC is one of the major regulatory bodies in India. Products with radio and/or wireless functionalities which are imported or manufactured and marketed in India must have an Equipment Type Approval, or ETA, certificate from the Wireless Planning, or WPC, wing of the Ministry of Communications of the Government of India. This includes products with Bluetooth, wireless local area network access technology, or Wi-Fi, small digital radios such as Zigbee, and radio frequency identifications, or RFID, among others. The Bureau of Indian Standards is the national standard body of India established under the BIS Act 2016 for the harmonious development of the activities of standardization, marking, and quality certification of a broad category of goods. BIS is not just for the electrical safety of wireless devices, but also provides traceable and tangible benefits to the national economy in a number of ways, such as providing safe, reliable, quality goods, minimizing health hazards to consumers, promoting exports and imports substitute, control over proliferation of varieties, etc., through standardization, certification, and testing of many products. The Telecommunications Engineering Center is in charge of the procedure for mandatory testing and certification of telecommunication equipment, which you may know as MTCTE. Any telecom terminal equipment which is used or capable of being used with any telecommunications network established has to undergo prior mandatory testing and certification in respect of parameters as determined by the authority from time to time. The required testing is to be performed by an Indian accredited lab and based upon their test reports. Certificates shall be issued by TEC. The WPC is the Radio Frequency Regulatory Authority of India, responsible for all matters related to the utilization of the radio frequency spectrum by wireless equipment in India. In India, type approval is required for the import of wireless equipment for use in the existing allocated frequency bands. There exist two types of frequency bands allocated for radio frequency communication. The first is the license exempt, also known as delicensed or unlicensed band. This came about in order to meet the international demand and market trends. WPC amended its regulations, which deregulated certain frequency bands. Equipment using this band requires an ETA, also known as an Equipment Type Approval Certificate, prior to import and sale in India. And this is issued to a locally registered Indian company. Some examples of technologies that are in this band consist of Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, RFID, NFC, wireless charging, etc. The next frequency band type is a license band, in which a license must be obtained prior to import and sale in India. Again, the license holder must be an Indian registered company. WPC can accept test data demonstrating compliance as part of their conformity assessment scheme, so this means if FCC or CE technical documents are available, then in-country testing is not required. The regulated frequency bands of operation are from 3 kHz to 3000 GHz, so if devices operate outside of this frequency, they aren't regulated by WPC. So we know that our D-licensed RF devices require an ETA according to Indian regulations, before the product can be sold and used in India. Now let's take a look at the approval process. Here we see the general approval process and the newer approval process, currently as of last year, known as ETA-SD, or Equipment Type Approval Self-Declaration. The main difference is, now the ETA can be obtained in less than half the time, due to no longer needing to provide physical copies of documents for review and evaluation. The general procedure consists of compiling the technical documentation consisting of the product's technical specs, user manual, RF test reports, and results or reports, and other documentation related to the device. If no test reports have been obtained, testing by an accredited laboratory to obtain the RF results would be required prior to starting the type approval process. These documents must be submitted to a regional WPC office in India as physical hard copies. Upon review and processing, the ETA certificate can be issued. This process can take many weeks. Following the new ETA-SD procedure, the process is the same except electronic copies can be accepted, and the processing duration is shorted greatly. Although despite the new method, certain categories of restricted products such as vehicular radars or drones will still require the following general procedure for issuing ETA. Here is a list of product category radio transmitter that require the ETA. It includes mobile, such as GSM or WCDMA smartphones, handsets or cellular devices, wireless local area network or WLAN devices such as Wi-Fi devices, Bluetooth devices, Zigbee devices, WiMAX devices, RFID devices such as contactless smart card readers, and some other RF transmission products. These are commonly short-range devices, consumer electronics such as laptops, smartwatches, short-range devices including accessories such as microphones, speakers, headphones, earphones, printers, scanners, and cameras, which operate in license-exempt bands as per the Indian National Frequency Allocation Plan, or NFAP. In addition, only receivers do not require WPC certificates such as GPS products. Following up on the previous slide, a non-exhaustive list of some products that commonly require application for ETA certifications that are regulated by WPC. Bluetooth speakers, wireless key chargers, Bluetooth headphones, wireless smart home appliances, radio frequency identification or RFID, tags and readers, wireless medical devices, laptops, mobile cellular phones, wireless computer peripherals such as mouse and keyboards, remote keys for keyless entry, wireless remote systems, and any other devices containing radio frequency modules. Here are the certification requirements In order to provide a complete submission file to WPC, we need to compile the following technical documentation: technical specifications and/or datasheet, user manual containing the product model identification, manufacturer, and operational description is required. In-country testing is not mandatory. Radio frequency test results and/or reports, authorization letter from manufacturer, local representative required, and application form. Sometimes other documents such as the Declaration of Conformity, accreditation certificate of the test lab showing their accreditation and that their scope is valid, or certificate holder company's incorporation number showing the company is a wholly owned and operated Indian company may be provided as well. The WPC certificate may only be granted to an Indian company and cannot be in the name of a foreign manufacturer, so this review of the business license is required. In terms of validity of the certificate does not expire as long as there are no hardware changes to the device, but if the applicant is applying for a WPC license and not the ETA, renewal is required every 6 months. The technical product specification containing the technical characteristics of the product such as frequency range, technology, modulation, power type, installation environment, etc. is required. Certification is required for host devices. There are no labeling requirements. Lead time is roughly 3 to 6 weeks or 1 to 3 weeks depending on the approval process used. Family models are not allowed, and modular approvals are not sufficient to cover host devices. Each end product requires its own certifications. Additionally, certificates are issued on a per band basis, meaning each band requires a certificate. So multiple certificates can be issued to one device. Certificates are generally issued as per the technical information indicated on the test reports. Here's a sample of the equipment type approval certificate. Information such as the applicant's name, address, contact information, equipment name, model, trademark, modulation modes, main functions, frequency range, occupied bandwidth, and transmitting power will be presented here. Again, the ETA is valid indefinitely unless there is a change in the device or regulation change. In the terms of the certification, it states that the certificate is invalidated upon changes to any of the listed technical and non-technical parameters such as output power, frequency of operational model number or brand name, and others. The Wireless Planning and Coordination Wing reserves the right to audit or perform checks on samples to be carried out for the purpose of RF analysis and spectrum monitoring to avoid interference to other wireless users and ensure compliance. Products with radio and/or wireless functionalities which are imported or manufactured and marketed in India must have an equipment type approval or ETA certificate from the Wireless Planning and Coordination Wing of the Ministry of Communications of the Government of India. And WPC is one of the major regulatory bodies in India. The Bureau of Indian Standards implements the safety schemes and are responsible for reviewing applications and issuing certificates. We will learn more about this in the next few slides. The Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology and Bureau of Indian Standards, or BIS, oversee the Compulsory Registration Scheme, or CRS, a scheme that covers 49 types of electronic apparatus. BIS requires that certain products imported to, manufactured in, stored, distributed, or sold in India must conform to the Indian safety standards and registered as compliant with the Bureau. Laptops, notebooks, tablets, mobile phones, power adapters for IT equipment are all covered under BIS. Even component parts of finished products, spare parts, and replacement parts may in some cases require BIS certification. Certificates are issued in the name of the factory, and there must be a local representation in India to obtain the certification. Here is a table of product categories that fall under the compulsory registration scheme and the respective Indian safety standards corresponding to the product category type. Amplifiers with input power 2000 watts and above, automatic data processing machine, electronic clocks with mains power, electronic games such as video, electronic musical systems with input power 200 watts and above, laptop, notebook, tablet, microwave ovens, optical disc players with built-in amplifiers of input power 200 watts and above, plasma, LCD, LED televisions of screen size 32 inches and above, printers, plotters, scanners, set-top box, telephone answering machines, visual display units, video monitors of any size 32 inches and above, wireless keyboards, cash registers, and this list will be updated over time and is expected to get longer. This list of products is continued here. And this is the last couple categories currently requiring the CRS or BIS registration. Any products under these categories will require the BIS safety registration. Here is a high-level and simplified overview of the BIS approval process. Before starting the process of compulsory registration of product must first be tested in a recognized safety BIS lab. Manufacturers of those products are required to apply for registration to register themselves as a manufacturer with BIS. This can be done before, after, or at the same time while getting their product tested by BIS recognized labs. Once reports have been issued by the lab, applicants can then file for product approval and/or registration. The following information is required for registering a manufacturer: full name and address of physical manufacturer, business registration license or other official government-issued document, and the contact details of the selected member of factory manufacturer responsible for BIS registration. Next is the product registration, where test reports and other documents are sent to BIS for review. All foreign applicants that have no liaison office or branch office located to India have to appoint an Authorized Indian Representative, or AIR, according to the guidelines issued by BIS. Lastly, BIS issues the certificate or registration letter, which is valid for 2 years and will perform market surveillance. This process in total can take around 30 to 60 business days. It may take 3 to 4 weeks for testing and another 3 to 4 weeks for the BIS registration. Taking a look at the documentation requirements, we require the critical components list. This should be signed and stamped by the factory and have evidence of conformity to IEC standards. Instructional manual, schematic, block diagrams, certified component certificates, the CV report for the laboratory's reference, and setup guide for the equipment. CV test reports and technical documentation must be submitted ahead of local testing. As for the lead time, generally it takes 3 to 4 weeks for testing and another 3 weeks for the BIS registration. One sample is required along with all supporting accessories and main model for each factory. Registration validity is for a period of 2 years and can be renewed if there is no change in the product, and the standard and must be for each factory per registration number certificates are issued for each physical manufacturer. For family models, as per the latest requirements, any test report can cover a maximum of 10 models in a family series under the ITE category. Other categories have different requirements. Registered manufacturers can request to include new models to the same product and brand under the same registration number. This means more models can be added after the original registration has been obtained. The standard mark can be displayed in single color or multicolor as shown here. The color scheme for the standard mark to be used in multicolor and not deviate from the color shown here. It should be placed on both the packaging and the product. Recently, it was required that the BIS website address also placed with the label. The BIS CRS registered user must display the standard mark or the words self-declaration conforming to IS, along with a registration number on the article and/or the packaging, as the case may be, in a manner so as to be easily visible. It should be legible, indelible, and non-removable. The display of IS number, registration number, and words should be no less than Arial font size 6. The registered users now have the option of using either the standard mark or use the self-declaration conforming to IS, along with registration number. E-labeling is allowed, but physical label on the packaging of the product is still required at the time of import, storage for sale, and sale or distribution. BIS requires that certain products imported to, manufactured in, stored, distributed, or sold in India must conform to the Indian safety standards and register as compliant with the Bureau. The Bureau of Indian Standards implements the safety schemes and are responsible for reviewing applications and issuing certificates. The Telecommunications Engineering Center is in charge of the procedure for mandatory testing and certification of telecommunication equipment. Any telecom terminal equipment which is used or capable of being used with any telecommunications network established has to undergo prior mandatory testing and certification in respect of parameters as determined by the authority from time to time. The required testing is to be performed by an Indian accredited lab and based upon their test reports. Certificate is issued by TEC. The Telecommunications Engineering Center, or TEC, of India prepares specifications of common telecom network equipment standards, services, and interoperability. All telecom equipment manufactured in India or imported for installation and connection to Indian telecommunications networks require mandatory testing and certification per TEC essential requirements. Applicable for communication or network equipment that interfaces with a public network or wide area network services. Common telecommunication network interfaces include T1, E1, ISDN, BRI, PRI, ISDN, ADSL, serial and analog, PSTN, and so on. The certification process is known as a procedure for mandatory testing and certification of telecommunication equipment, or MTCTE. The testing and certification in this procedure ensures that the equipment meets all TEC prescribed essential requirements. The quality and reliability of equipment is not part of this procedure, so OEMs, importers, and dealers themselves will be responsible for necessary quality and reliability criteria claimed by them. Approval schemes for telecom devices in India under MTCTE, and they are applicable based on the type of the product. Under the General Certification Scheme, the applicant is required to demonstrate compliance through testing and submission of test reports, in respect to the parameters included in essential requirements from any designated conformity assessment body or recognized body of a mutually recognized partner country. The test results shall be evaluated for compliance against respective essential requirements. If equipment is found compliant with all applicable essential requirement parameters, a certificate shall be issued to the applicant along with the labeling details. For the specific model of equipment, under the Simplified Certification Scheme, the applicant has to submit a compliance information and a self-declaration of conformity, or SDOC, in respect to parameters included in requirements. All other rules and/or procedures applicable in case of GCS apply in case of SCS. except test reports that are not required to be submitted by the applicant or evaluated by TEC. However, the TEC reserves the right to ask the applicant to submit copy of report in case of SCS also. This is a list of equipment covered by MTCTE under the GCS approval scheme. It consists of equipment such as routers, switches, repeaters, gateways, telephone equipment, short-range devices, and more. This is the list of equipment covered by MTCTE under the SCS approval scheme. The list of equipment covered by MTCTE under GCS and SCS is updated from time to time and expected to expand in the future. This is the list of equipment not covered by MTCTE under either the GCS or SCS approval schemes. Some of these equipment may eventually be added, but currently everything here is not presently covered. Some examples are Wi-Fi modules, RF test instruments, amateur radios, antennas, waveguides, wireless temperature sensors, BLE remote controls, and Wi-Fi appliances. The technical regulations prescribed under this framework are in the form of essential requirements. The essential requirements, or ER, is to be complied with for the purpose of certification under this procedure will include the following. 1. EMI or EMC as prescribed by TEC. 2. Safety as prescribed by TEC. 3. Technical requirements as prescribed by TEC. 4. Other requirements as notified by TEC, DOT, or any other government agency from time to time. And 5. Security requirements as per notification issued by DOT. If an essential requirement is not met, a provisional one will be provided at the request of applicants. Any amendments to essential requirements are applicable from the date set in the amendment, and until the date the previous requirements are still in effect. The following information and documents are required: bill of materials, user manual, schematic and/or block diagram, circuit and/or block diagram, specifications and/or datasheet, test reports which are not older than 1 year covering all essential requirements. For standard equipment in the GCS category, the lead time is on average 4 to 8 weeks for the processing of the certification. For standard equipment in the SCS category, the lead time is on average 2 to 4 weeks for the processing of the certification. This does not include testing time. The number of samples varies depending on the number of requirements that apply and the logistics of performing the evaluation for all the requirements. Registration validity is for a period of 2 years and can be renewed if there is no change in the product, and the standard must be for each factory per registration number. Certificates are issued for each physical manufacturer. For family models, up to 10 models can be included in a family series, and testing must have been performed on the highest spec model, in other words, the worst case model. As for renewals, no retesting is needed as long as the product has no technical changes. Even if there are changes in the product, it will not require complete retesting. OEM importers and dealers must ensure that equipment offered for sale and/or use in India is clearly marked or affixed with the OEM's or brand's name, the equipment's trade name, model name, and serial number, and the relevant certification label. The MTCTE labeling requires the TEC logo to be physically placed on the equipment, as well as the certification number provided by TEC from the certificate indicating that the equipment conforms to essential requirements. TEC certification e-labeling is required in the case of mobile handset and tablets. The TEC certification label must be legible, indelible, non-removable, and should be easily discerned under normal lighting conditions. The TEC certification label should be put on the product at a prominent location so that it is clearly visible to the user. However, in case of removing or user replaceable outer cover, example given back cover in case of few mobile models, it can be placed below removable cover. The TEC certification E label consists of the name of country, India, certificate number of the certificate issued for the device under MTCTE, the device's model number, and TEC logo, as given in following figure. The information can be in the firmware or software menu provided. It is easily accessible and cannot be modified. Instructions on how to access E-label shall be included in the user's manual, operating instructions, or as an insert in the package of the product, or other similar means. The Telecommunications Engineering Center is in charge of the procedure for mandatory testing and certification of telecommunication equipment. Any telecom terminal equipment which is used or capable of being used with any telecommunications network established has to undergo certification per the general or simplified certification scheme, and certified equipment must bear the TEC logo. This concludes our webinar on India market access and approvals for electrical equipment and wireless products. I hope this webinar was helpful for you in determining which Indian certifications apply to your device and what the process for approval and certifications process is like for the different available certification schemes, as well as what requirements may be. Compliance with the technical requirements of India is required for all radio and telecom products and ensures that any wireless equipment does not degrade performance or cause interference with the existing network to which it is connected. Provide suitable safety to the end users, and ensure RF emissions comply with the relevant standards. Depending on the certification scheme, equipment may require approval and testing in India prior to distribution or placement on the market. Visa Compliance Labs specializes in certifications, approvals, and compliance testing for electrical and radio frequency devices, and is a 17025 accredited EMC RF compliance test lab and a 17065 accredited product certification body. We are a telecommunications certifications body in the US, Canada, EU, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Japan, and we provide certification and approvals for all product types in countries all over the world. If you would like to stay in touch with regulatory updates, follow us online. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions on the information presented today, or any general inquiries, you can reach us anytime at info@visacompliance.com. Thank you for your time, and have a wonderful day.